Hello, friends. It's Charissa and Kris.
Hooray!
So, my name's Charissa. I'm with Charm City Readers. And Kris, introduce yourself.
My name is Kris Faatz. I thank you so much for having me. I think this is our third interview together, and you are awesome. So I love it. Thank you.
Well, you know what I was thinking of is you were my first interview on Charm City Readers. So, and it was about this time last year that we did it, because this was the time last year. I don't have my line magic, but I do have this baby right here.
Yes. Absolutely.
So we met a year ago to talk about this one. Buy it. It's great. It may come up tonight.
It may.
But that's
sure.
not because Nicky Rebus, I mean, there's just so much to talk about. That could be its own sideshow. Just talking about these men in your life. But do you have the book in front of you? Do you show it?
I have line magic.
It's so
yes, I
beautiful.
do. Isn't that pretty? I love it.
And who did the cover again?
Patricia Creedon. She's one of the artists with Highlander Press, and she is fantastic.
Beautiful. Good job, Patricia. Good job. But anyway, so our friendship, our relationship is now like a year in the making. So thanks for joining me again. This is thrilling.
Thank you. Thank you.
How has launch day been?
It's been incredible. It really has. I'm very tired. I am elated. The support has just been amazing. I mean, I go into these things feeling like, why should anybody care about this figment of my imagination? But people have been so supportive. So you and Debbie especially, I just have to say thank you both. You've been amazing. Yay!
We love you.
Thank you. It's been great. I'm gonna have to do some processing. This is gonna be like digesting for a bit. And okay, now we did this, and it's out there and it's out in the world.
Maybe we'll have a drink later. All right.
That
we are
sounds
talking
like a plan.
about a drink. Yeah, next week, but maybe we'll just do a drink later. Okay, so before we get into the book, we didn't do a lightning round last time because I hadn't invented lightning rounds yet. So I want to do a lightning round.
Okay.
No, yeah, I want to do a lightning round with you. I think it helps people get to know you, and then it helps, you are an introvert like I am, believe it or not. Yes, I'm an introvert. Don't argue with me. But it helps us talk, right? So, favorite color.
See, that's already hard. I'm going to go with green, although that's complicated. Yes.
I thought you were going to say green. I thought you were going to say green. I did.
Hey, there you go.
Oh, Debbie said it's a pleasure. All the love. That's for you, but not for me. I already know this one. Favorite book format.
Favorite book format?
Yeah.
Novels, of course. Oh, yes, of course. Paperbacks.
I haven't interviewed a single author who liked Kindles.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a stupid question, but. Do you read audio do you listen to audiobooks?
I've only done it a couple times on really long drives, but I prefer to be able to just read at my own speed. Yeah. And
smell the paper.
Yeah.
What's your favorite genre to read? Trick question.
Yeah. I mean, I love literary, just kind of regular literary. I love historical. I love fantasy. I'd probably have to say fantasy as a first favorite, but they're all kind of right up there. Really? So surprising, right?
Well, favorite genre to write, because this is a trick question.
Yes.
I know already. I was like, I'm gonna ask it anyway.
Yeah, that's I have to say what I did with line magic is probably my favorite type of thing, which is that cross genre, like real world setting, but with a fantastical or magical realist element. So I'm gonna have to blend on that one. Yeah.
We're gonna talk about genres in a little bit because I don't know who picks the genre. Is that Debbie?
I think yes. So I wasn't responsible for the tags or anything this time. So okay. Not my expertise. Okay.
So people who don't know you may not know that you are a pianist. Favorite composer. Who's your favorite composer? Beethoven.
Okay. Ludwig von Beethoven. Yes. Yeah.
I kind of like Bach. You played Bach for me. Thank you so much.
Oh, sure. I love Bach. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You also love nature. So do you have like a favorite flower or a favorite tree?
Oh, that's a tough one. Favorite flower, I'd probably go with iris. And we also have a rose of Sharon in our backyard, and I love that just sort of whole hibiscus family. Yeah, so both of those. Yeah.
Those are very flashy choices.
Well, they're flashy, but they're very temporary, and that's one of the things I love about them. They bloom for like a day, and there's just
And then
something
they're gone.
so magical about that. Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But Nicky's gift.
Yes. Yes. Uh-huh.
Okay.
Sorry.
I love these parallels. Okay. Moving on. Favorite hiking spot? I'm gonna assume in Maryland.
Yeah, I mean, that actually is a little bit tricky, but so top favorite would be Marshy Point Park, which is local in Baltimore County, out towards Essex.
I think I should know that because I think Paul just posted it recently. Like this.
Oh yeah, and I have too. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Do you believe in magic?
Oh man, come on. That's a really tough.
It can be like street magic, right? Like when people levitate like David Blaine, are you like it's a trick? It's an eye? Or are you like it could be real?
I mean, I want to believe it's real, but I am kind of looking for the misdirection. I do want to know, like, yeah, how are you making me think this is happening? Yeah.
Right. Like who was it? What's his face that made the whatchamacallit disappear in New York? Statue of Liberty.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like, how would you do that? Like, how do you make?
How'd you do that? Yeah.
Okay. Last question. Have you ever experienced something that cannot be explained? That you also want to talk about live that will live forever.
That will live forever. No. I would say a couple of times I have felt sort of an intervention, or I've been in a place where I've felt like I could really use a certain type of help, and that help arrives. And I can't, it's one of those, like, I really want to think that somebody heard me, Yeah. So yeah, I would say I certainly believe in that there is more than we can see, that there's more to the world than we can see. Yeah.
Kris, I'm with you. Whatever we want to call it, if we want to call it magic or faith, I'm
exactly.
all in. Okay. Thank you for playing with me. Thank you. Because those were some hard questions. I know. All right. Give everyone a summary of line magic.
That's tough too. No. So,
there's a lot in there.
There's a lot in there. Yeah. So it is set mainly in during the final months of World War II in Philadelphia, and its main character is an artist who can transform his subjects by drawing them. So he makes a change on the paper, and the actual subject changes in the same way. He can do that with anything, any object, a person, whatever. And the story is really about what he decides to do with that gift, how he harnesses it, and then what his legacy becomes.
Ooh, that was way better than mine. Yeah, because you just encapsulated it. Can we talk for a minute? And I know you've kind of been talking about this, because if you buy the book, everyone, you get a bonus.
Yes.
Let's just talk about it. Bonus read. Because this story's origin was from a writer's challenge. And what I love about this is I want to, if you're open to it, talk about it a little bit, but the kind of writer's challenge that you did, and maybe people don't know, they give you a prompt, right? And you have to build from the prompt. And so I read your original story. You let me read it like last year. But I think it'd be really fascinating to people how this comes about, right? Who would think that you would write for a writer's challenge, you'd get feedback, and it blossoms into a published novel. So can you talk about like the writer's challenge, how many words it was, the prompt words?
Sure. Yeah. So the organization is New York City Midnight, and I need to give them a huge shout out because they are awesome. They run a bunch of different contests every year. They're all generative. And stories of different lengths. So there's like a 250 word microfiction. There's 2,500 word standard short story. So this particular prompt that inspired Line Magic was a 1,000-word flash fiction contest. So they send you a prompt, and usually it's a genre and then a couple of elements that you have to include somehow. So in the case of my prompt, the genre I got was romantic comedy. And I was like, you've got to be kidding. Like, I don't write romance or comedy. And then I had to include a sketchbook and a lingerie store. And I was just like, okay, and I had 48 hours to come up with 1,000 words. And I was like, yeah, no. So,
spoiler, you didn't write a rom-com.
And then It ended up not, yeah. Anyway, so so I sort of panicked, and then because fantasy is my sort of go-to, I don't know where the thought came from. This could be one of those instances of intervention of some kind, but the thought came, what if you had someone who could change subjects by drawing them? And I thought, well, that would take care of the sketchbook. And then I thought, well, who would want that type of magic? Who would want to be changed in that way? And I thought, well, models, right? Because you want the perfect face, you want the perfect look. So I thought, well, maybe this guy's drawing lingerie models. Okay, well, there's the store, right? And then for the romance, it was, well, maybe he falls in love with one of these models. So it was a very short piece, and it was written, in desperation and very quickly. But I was using a first person. Yeah. Yes. The first person voice, which I didn't normally do. I had my narrator telling his own story, and I really liked his voice, but I still saw this as just a one-off, this little prompt, this little exercise. And then New York City Midnight has the judges send you feedback on your entries. And one of the judges gave me this whole list of questions. They were like, I want to know more about this. I want to know more about this. And I'm thinking, I had 1,000 words, that's all I had. And then at the end of that, they said, you should make this a novel. And I was like, oh, no. But the more I thought about it, I thought, I do really like this character's voice. I'm struck by that. So yeah, let's play. And I didn't spend anywhere near as much time planning it as I did with my first 2 books. It was more like, just jump in, and see what happens. Yeah. And then once I saw what happened, and it was like, well, this is terrible. This is all wrong. So now I have to back up and figure out, well, where does it actually start? And what's the time period? And what's going on in this guy's life? And who is he? And, all of that. So it had to kind of build itself in a way that I don't normally do. But it was really, really fun. And it honestly was one of the most fun things I've done, was building this into a novel.
Okay, so I've just learned something, because you sent me a story in the fall to read, and it wasn't that one. It was a different one.
It wasn't this one. I was thinking, no, wait a minute. Did I see?
I know.
No, I sent you the other one. Yeah.
It was Nicky. I mean, I could tell you, like, I didn't reread it for the purposes of this, but like, they lived in like not a crude house, but like, very humble house, and the dad is covered in the stuff and comes home and he's sort of exhausted. So it's like the same characters, but a different scene. And it was the glass ashtray.
Yep.
Right. So how did we get from lingerie to ashtray? Lingerie, ashtray.
Okay. So the story that you
read.
The
whole hour.
yeah. Whatever. Yeah. So the story that you read actually is one that I wrote while I was working on the novel, and I wanted to get to know the characters better. So in the novel, our protagonist, Nicky, is an adult, and he has recently lost his dad. And that has a huge effect on him. That's one of the driving forces in the story. But I wanted to get to know Nicky as a kid. So I went back and wrote the story that you read. It's a scene with him and his father when Nicky's 11. So you're getting a different take, and it's through Desmond's perspective. So that's totally different. The story I'm telling you about was the very, very first one. So I'll have to send it to you.
That's the one I get for free because I bought the book?
That's the one you get for free. Exactly.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I swear I bought the book. I'll send you my code. Like, I would like.
No, you're fine. I trust you.
I mean, really,
all of the
fascinating.
Nicky True renderings.
I will sign with blood. I'll send you the screenshot. Yeah. Okay. Lingerie. And so no, I'm not going to jump into that yet, because I was going to jump straight into the middle of the book. And then we would just miss everything. Okay. Backing up. Genre. Fantasy, historical fiction. I am not the best judge of genre. I think you'll recall when we talked about 14 Stones, I quizzed you on it because I was like, really? I forget what did it say it is? Military fantasy? Is that right? Are you frozen? You look really happy to see me. Are you there? There you are. You were frozen for a second.
Yeah, I was having a little trouble. Yeah, I was having a little trouble hearing you.
Oh. Is it your Wi-Fi or mine?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you. But you were frozen in a very
Something wrong?
smiley way, and it made me think that you really liked me.
Uh-oh.
I'm here.
I mean, I do like you. I just, wow, is it my Wi-Fi? That would not be good. You're here.
I'm
okay.
in the basement really close to my Wi-Fi, so you want to hop on and hop off, and I'll just entertain everybody for 3 minutes, or no?
Okay, I'd be surprised. I can try. Yeah, so I should just try leaving the studio. Okay.
Or we could try it one more time, and you can just stay on.
Okay, I'll try leaving the studio and getting back in.
All right, and I will try to entertain the masses.
Okay. Okay, 1 second.
Okay. All right. She's jumping off, and then she's jumping back on. So everyone is joining us. I don't know if you know Kris Faatz. I have actually read 2 of her books. I got to know her last year, and she wrote this awesome novel, 14 Stones, which was originally published in New Zealand, believe it or not. And Highlander Press picked it up and published in the States. And so if you want to learn about this book, which is also fantasy, I think, Debbie, you call it historical fantasy, but it's kind of like, I don't know, I tried to make it dystopian. It's not that either. It's just beautiful. This book is available now. And she and I did 2 interviews, one interview to kind of pre-launch it, and one interview that has every spoiler you can imagine in it. So don't jump into that second interview, which is the longer interview, if you want to learn about this other book, because I'll just give everything away and talk about all the characters. This book, you know, she's going to talk about it, but I think she started it in 2021. Debbie's online. She may know more. I thought she started it like a year ago, and I was like, how fast is this lady like pushing out books? But I think it's maybe 4 years in the making. I think she started it right after COVID. And yeah, and it's also fantasy. And one of the interesting things about Kris and fantasy is, oh, she's coming back. Oh, I'm talking about you.
Hello.
Okay. There you are. I was saying,
okay.
One of the things about you and fantasy is you decided to write fantasy because you could invent the world. But in this book, you didn't.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You didn't. It's in Philadelphia.
Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
So you didn't invent the world. So I took everybody on a quick 14 Stones trip, and then I looped it back to Lion Magic. Okay.
Perfect.
So genre, and I said I embarrassed you, or not embarrassed you, but I quizzed you the first time around because I was quizzing you on what the genre of 14 Stones was.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And when I looked up this one, I was like, historical fiction, historical fantasy. That's what it is. Mm-hmm. And Debbie or Highlander Press have it as metaphysical fiction. And I thought, I am not smart enough to know what that is. I had to look up metaphysical. I mean, like, I guess I can meta and physical, I can figure it out. But yeah, metaphysical fiction or metaphysical fantasy. What okay. I was like historical fantasy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that what you'd say it is? Historical fantasy?
I see it as historical fantasy. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Susan's here. She says magical realism.
Sure. That works. Yes.
I am learning that genres can be really anything you want.
You know, they can, and sometimes it's about getting the algorithm to like you. So
like, oh, okay. If metaphysical gets us there, then let's let it take us there.
We'll go with it. Yes. Yeah.
Well, and I also, so my boss really likes me to use AI. And so not as writing. Okay. I'm not writing books using AI. Writers, good. Simmer down. It's for like, you know, taglines and ideas. That's all. Mm-hmm. I promise. And I was asking it what it thought, and it said that it was art as magic trope. Okay. I didn't know that was a trope, but it says it's the idea that the creation or performance of art can manifest magical effects or influence the world in some way. And I was like, that's a thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then I thought about, like, as a child, you'd see those movies that your parents probably didn't want you to see, where like some girl was like dancing and the guy was like mesmerized by her dancing and hypnotized. Mm-hmm. And I was like, so this is in that genre, Kris.
I can see it. Yeah, I can see it. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the book, you mentioned quickly that you wanted to get to know the young Nicky, because you sort of felt connected to the older Nicky.
Yeah.
This story has a dual timeline, right? It has the older Nicky retelling his own story, because his daughter has asked him to like write it down and document it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
In my thinking, I'm like, it could have just existed on its own. Like it could have been the story of Nicky, and then he grows up and all these things happen to him, and then big ending.
Mm-hmm.
Why the dual timeline? Like, what were you trying to accomplish with that?
So this is very funny because Debbie actually asked me the same question in the interview that she and I did. And this is where I'm going to sound like a crazy person. So, which, you know, full disclosure, it's accurate. So what happened was I was imagining Nicky in 1945 once I kind of settled on that as the time frame, because it felt like it could have been anywhere from the 20s through the 40s. And so I ended up settling on 1945. And I realized, okay, you have this young man in 1945. And at the time that I was working on this story, it was like, well, if he, if he was just aging normally, I didn't want to imagine a point where Nicky was no longer around. So I had to be able to imagine him as this older man. Like I had to know, here's how old he would be right now.
Yeah.
As I'm telling his story, or as he's telling his story. So I needed to be able to picture him as older. And then once I started picturing him, I thought, oh, this is actually kind of interesting because first of all, writing in first person is not something I normally do. And then second of all, having just one point of view for an entire novel. I mean, you've seen 14 Stones, we alternate four different POVs. My first novel, I had 2 different POVs. So it felt very strange to just stick in one. So I thought, well, if we have older Nicky and younger Nicky, it's like I sort of have 2, so I can cheat. So that was, but it was mostly just because I had to be able to imagine him still being there, because I cared about him. I liked him so much. And I just kind of had to picture his whole, his whole lifespan.
Well, I was talking with Jillian Forsberg. I don't know if you've read her book, The Rhino Keeper. It's really good.
No, I haven't yet.
You should read it. But she also has a dual timeline. And I asked her too, why? Because so much happens just in the original timeline. And she said that her characters needed a closure that the story couldn't in itself give. So in her situation, it has to do with what happens to the rhinoceros. But in your situation, it's like, what does this effect have on this man? Like, how does he live a whole life with this gift and the pressure of the gift, right?
Yeah.
So I think we get that a little bit because we get his comfort level in his own skin, with the dual timeline.
Yeah, and I also did want to get to the point because in the book, older Nicky is not able to use the magic anymore. He doesn't have it anymore. And so it was like, well, that's also a commentary on here's how it used to be. It doesn't exist anymore. So now what does that mean for, for the future, for the people he cares about, for his, children and grandchildren, so his daughter and grandchildren. So it was sort of speculating like, yeah, what happens now that the magic isn't active anymore?
It's interesting because I just had like a weird deja vu of you and I talking about Rebus and like if anyone would inherit his gift.
Yes.
And then you were talking and I'm like, we had this conversation, except it was about a different character and a different gift.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like, does Nicky pass it down? And like, honestly, with the strength of the gift, like how comfortable are you losing it? I mean, maybe maybe the pressure was really real. So he was okay letting it go in the end, but it seems like such a huge loss.
Well, I think he was okay with it, but he certainly missed it. And I think what he misses more than anything else is just having the same drawing skill, that he had when he was young. So it's not just the magic, it's also just, here's what my hands used to be able to do. And now they can't,
Yeah.
As far as passing it down, there is the possibility that it will be passed down. There's kind of a hint of that in the story, that his great granddaughter might also have it.
Sequel.
But we don't know.
Spin-off. Yeah. I know you're not like totally into sequels yet, and I keep pushing them for the 2 books that I've read, but
Yes.
I'm just saying. Yeah. So you kind of hinted to it. Can we talk about how he discovers his gift? Like I checked, it's 40 pages in, so it's not really a spoiler, but it's very emotional, especially he's such a young child at the time. And you chose to make it painful, like hard. Yes. Right? So it's not that he learns he can do this and life is great. He learns he can do this and the immediate feedback from the world is like, but it's not enough.
Yes.
Yeah. So can you talk about like how he discovers it and maybe why you made those choices as far as, temporary?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So actually it's a great question because figuring out the rules of the magic, we were talking about, I didn't invent the setting of this book. I didn't
Right.
get to build a world, but I did have to figure out the rules of Nicky's magic. And that was kind of a similar process, like how does this work? And
Ah,
so so the way it comes about in the story is that Nicky already has a tremendous gift with drawing. He's just really good. He's very talented. And then when his younger brother Charlie is born, Charlie has a clubfoot, and Nicky is 8, and so he's still young enough. He doesn't really know what's going on, but his parents are being very sort of like, something's wrong, and Nicky doesn't know what's wrong. And so then when he sees Charlie and he sees Charlie's foot, he kind of starts thinking about it. Like it doesn't look right. It doesn't
right.
look right. And by this point, we know that he can draw things, like basically exactly replicate what's in front of him. Like I said, he's super talented for an 8-year-old. This is all magic, right? You're not supposed to.
I
Not
love my
supposed to really.
son. He cannot draw like that.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
neither can I. This is not a skill we
Neither
possess.
can I. So yeah, yeah, it's magic. But so he's thinking about it, and then he has this realization, and he actually feels like a physical shift. Um, and he's not able to put words to it at the time, but much later he would describe it as a car getting into gear, like finding the right gear. And he realizes that, well, if he were to draw Charlie's foot the way it should look, that should make it look that way. And so he does it and it works, but then it is temporary. So the foot goes back to the way it used to be. Um, I wanted it to be temporary because to me that was more believable, that you can't just fix a problem and it can't just be that way. And I felt like for magic to be believable, there's got to be a limit to it. Um, and I didn't want it to just be he can make everything perfect. And then the other piece of it was, and this is something that, I mean, honestly, I still don't really know. People ask him, well, how does this work? Like, why are you able to do this? And he's like, I don't, I don't know. Um, and his theory is that something about the magic, because it works so quickly, it's able to trick whatever he draws into thinking it's always been the way he's drawing it, rather than making an actual physical change. It's just like, we're going to pretend that it was always this way. It's like we step into an alternate reality, so then we
Yeah,
can't
for a minute.
stay there, Yeah.
What's the
Yeah.
rule? The rules, is it an hour? I
It's
can't
an
remember.
hour.
It's an hour. Yeah.
It's an hour unless he redraws whatever it was, or in the case of a living subject, if he tears up the drawing, then it goes back to the way it was.
And why that rule? Like, what if he tore up a not living subject? Nothing happens.
If he tore up a not living subject, nothing happens. It either has to time out or he has to draw it again. I don't know. That was
No, but I love, because I never, honestly, I know you're the writer and you're the creator, but it never like occurred to my little brain that like she had to define this like it's
yes,
a world. You had
yes,
to make all the rules.
the
Like
rules.
I
Hmm.
only had the simple question of like, why'd you make it temporary? Um, but why does it have to be so painful the moment that he realizes that it is temporary? Like, why did it have to be Charlie's foot? Because I mean, what a letdown.
Yes.
Why couldn't it have been an apple? Like because I mean, not only because I mean, he has to be brought up to this elevated, like I did it. His parents
Yes.
are like, "What have you done? This is
Yes.
amazing. This is unreal." And then
Yes.
the collective letdown of like, never mind.
Never
It
mind.
went back.
Hmm.
Why hurt him so badly?
She's poor Nikki, right?
I
No.
know.
Um,
I have an 8-year-old too, so I mean, maybe it's a
I'm
little more
sorry.
like
Yeah.
personal.
It's a little more personal. Yeah. Um, why did it have to be that way? Well, I wanted the stakes for him, the thing that made him realize what he could do. I felt that the stakes had to be high enough. Like if he was looking at an apple and the apple didn't look right, it's like, yeah, the apple doesn't look right. Like who cares? you know,
Who cares? It's an
it
apple.
had
Yeah.
to be right. Like it had to be something that was that important. And that
Mm.
this all kind of goes back to when I was figuring out these characters in the family, because initially the only character I had was Nikki initially. So, figuring out who his parents were and that he even had a brother was like, this whole process. But very early on with Charlie, I had the idea that he had some kind of physical limitation, but I wasn't sure what it was. Like I was sort of, playing around with stuff. And then I realized, well, if it was something that was related to physical capacity, but also was this kind of not cosmetic, but something that you
Something you
could
can
sort of
see.
imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, something you could imagine just kind of changing visually and then you'd fix it, quote unquote. I was like, oh, well, then Nicky would use his magic on that. So that's perfect. Um, but yeah, it had to be high stakes enough. And I figured that's high stakes enough.
Yeah, that's brutal. It was absolutely brutal watching him
She's
go
like,
through
back
that,
to my
because then
point.
the parents are disappointed and the mom was disappointed and
Uh,
he's disappointed in himself and all the feels, And I think
yes. Yeah.
that disappointment, though, colored his view of his gift, right? Like,
Yeah.
yes, there's
Oh,
so
yeah.
much I can do with it, but not the thing I needed to do.
Yes, and
Needed.
that is something we see him carrying with him. And he has this whole idea, going forward and into his adulthood, that the magic isn't useful for very much, quote unquote, that it's, oh, it's just this neat little trick, and then, oh, I can sell it, people will pay me to use it. But the idea that it could do anything profound is really just, he doesn't believe that until, I mean, I don't want to give
The
spoilers, but
end, which we won't tell. You have to read the book.
exactly. Yeah.
Um, Good transition, though, because I was going to say, like, Nicky has lost. You mentioned that his father. So you mentioned part of that. I didn't give it away. You gave it away, so it's
I
totally
did.
fine. And he runs away for a while. He runs away to Los Angeles, where he
Mm-hmm.
does movie making and uses this like power. And I think I was in the car with my family and I was describing the power, right? I was like, how
Mm-hmm.
cool would that be? Oh, it was my sister and my mom, in case they're watching, because my sister's in theater. So what if someone's in the front row saying like that
Mm-hmm.
collar doesn't look right and is fixing it while the actor is live on stage? It occurred to me that this book could have taken this very fantastical turn of like
Mm-hmm.
Hollywood.
Yes.
And Nicky goes to Hollywood. That could have been the title.
Mm-hmm.
Nicky goes to Hollywood. And then he has this very magical life using his
Yes.
gift to become, famous or woo the right woman and fall in love and do these amazing things. And you didn't. You chose to bring him back to this very humble, painful place. Like, did you always know you were going to do that? Didn't you want to throw Nicky a bone at any point? Or
Oh, am I that mean to him? Really?
no, I'm just kidding.
That's
Because he meets a lovely girl
well, he does.
and lovely
Okay,
friends.
so yes,
But it just
yes.
occurred to me, like, alternate, it could have been this like showy Hollywood thing, and you brought it back to Philly, like blue collar,
Mhm.
struggles. Just curious why. Felt more real?
So that goes back to the story that you haven't read, that I will send, the bonus story for people who buy a copy online.
Yeah.
Yeah. so, so in that story, it was my initial sketch of Nicky meeting a girl, falling in love. And that story took place in Philly, which there again, it was like, I have 48 hours to write this. I need to pick something. And
Right.
Philly is where I come from originally.
Philly,
Um, so, so it was like, all right, here's something I can kind of plug in and just can kind of do it. And then when I started working on the book, I did think about changing the setting, but I realized I really liked Philly, partly because when I started doing some research into what was going on there leading up to and then into World War II, there is this drastic shift in terms of manufacture and factories that we talk about a little bit in the book, as far as plants moving out of the city, moving into the suburbs. And so people are losing their jobs. And specifically, you have these war vets who are coming home who, their jobs are disappearing and they can't afford to move to the suburbs themselves. They can't afford the commute. So I wanted it to be there. It was like, this is going to be, this
yeah.
setting has a lot of nice inherent tension. I didn't know about the Hollywood thing until I was trying to figure out, well, what did Nicky do during those blank 3 years? What was he doing? And then I thought, well, where would this magic be embraced? And then it was like, oh, Hollywood.
Yeah.
And that could have been a very different story and it would have been a lot of fun, but I did not want to lose that very real, quality, like this is real life. And I wanted him to have to deal with. I mean, I see what you're saying. He has to deal with a lot of
Yeah.
stuff. But then of course there's also, I always tell my writing students, you got to get your character up a tree and then start throwing rocks, like that's how you create a story. So I guess I
Poor
did
Nicky.
that.
Did you throw
Poor
rocks at
Nicky.
Rebus? You
Did I
didn't throw
do it
rocks
to
at Rebus? No,
Did
you
I
did
do
not.
it to Well, I mean,
Rebus was
eventually,
perfect.
yes. I mean, that whole scene, I mean, he is perfect, but that whole thing with what he ultimately has to do with his gift. I mean, I cried so much when I was writing that.
Yes.
So
Okay, fine.
yeah.
I just can't see you throwing stones at Rebus.
Well, I'd be scared to. I mean, he's a whole, yeah.
Yeah. Again, folks, got to read the books to understand the jokes, but
That's
you know,
right.
maybe it's intriguing. No, but what I like about this book, so even 14 Stones felt very fantastical, right? It's in another world, another land. The land has a lot of the rules we have, gravity, that kind of thing. But like, you were completely taken out of your place of comfort and put into this whole new world that you had to embed, which I still have questions about, right? Because I want to know more. But different talk. This story, because it's in Philly, because it's World War II, and you address things like financial instability, class discrimination, racial discrimination, cancer, disease. It feels very gritty, right? So there are like no unicorns, like,
Nope.
and I don't mean that from like actual unicorns, but like it's fantasy, but it feels so down to earth and gritty. And it feels very real. Like I don't know how to say it. It's like approachable fantasy. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, and it hurts sometimes because it's not all escapism, right? It's just very, very real life stuff. Like, why did you choose to weave? I mean, obviously Philly was an inspiration, but you know, you wove the race issues, the class issues, the war.
Yeah.
You need to make life really challenging for Nicky so he could rise above.
I mean, that's a thought.
Sorry.
Yeah, no.
Was that too big?
No.
I have big feelings when I read your books. I cannot help myself.
That's good. So, yeah, the realism was a big, big goal. And I'm so glad to hear that came
Oh
through and that
yeah.
it does feel, because sometimes, and I'm thinking here about Neil Gaiman, who's kind of an unfortunate example these days. He used to be a hero of mine, and then there's a whole thing about Neil Gaiman. But a lot of his books are set in the real world, but they have this magical stuff going on. And as much as I admired his writing, there's some corner cutting. Like you feel like this is sort of an alternate version of the real world, but it's not like the here and now. You know, it doesn't feel 100%. And with line magic, I wanted it to feel like, no, this could really be happening. You know, these are people with real lives. As far as all the different threads that came in, I mean, mental health, of course, is another big one. I don't know if that was, I think, I think you might have mentioned that too.
I don't think I mentioned it specifically, but yes.
Yeah, so that one actually was one that I started with. I knew that I knew that Nicky had dealt with some of the same things that I've dealt with, and he was actually going to be a way for me to write about and process some of the stuff that I had dealt with. So I knew that was in there. And then at some point I had this idea of, well, what if he, because I'd read about, you know, the moving of the factories out of Philly, and that a lot of the loss of employment fell along racial lines as well, because Black workers, even if they could have afforded to move to the suburbs, well, we don't want you here, you know, even though there were no colored white, you know, there were no signs, there were no lines drawn, but it was there, you know, it was kind of those invisible divisions. So I thought, well, what if he is, you know, he hires this young colored woman, as he calls her, this young Black woman to clean. And then that brings in this whole new thread that I wanted to use that because I thought, well, this is just so, you know, it's specific to the time and the place, but also it was universal. And there's also, you know, undertones that are so relevant still. And so I wanted to have that be part of it too. So it was like one thing and another just kind of started coming in. And that was what made it such a tough project, because I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing to myself? You know, like I really.
What you mentioned with 14 Stones, that immigration really played like a role in that story being shaped, right? Because it was a present day. I mean, it's still a thing. We talk about it a lot. It's in the news a lot. Were there things in present day news that affected this story? Like, you know, with the racism, with mental health, did those like affect the story, or is the story just pulled from your history? Is it any, you know, is anything present?
Um, well, I would say I was kind of hoping it would be less present than it is. When I was working on it a few years ago, I was hoping that we were making more lasting societal change.
Progress. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I did see the racial element in particular as being more universal. The mental health stuff, I mean, that's certainly something that lots of people deal with, but that was very personal, whereas the racial aspect was more, I do want to write about something that feels relevant. I mean, this was not too long after George Floyd. So there was
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
element that, yeah, the tension is still really, really vivid. So I did want to bring that in. But I had
Yeah.
hoped, as I've written about, I'd hoped that Nicky would be going into a somewhat different world, than where we are.
Well, let's talk a little bit about, is it Minna or Mina? Minna?
Minna.
Minna? Minna.
Yes.
Okay. And Timothy,
Yes.
because again, you made some choices, serious choices, bringing in kind of this topic of class and race divisions. Like,
Hmm.
how did they specifically come about? Because it's like Minna's just so lovely, and she ends up bringing so many people together without knowing it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like in
Hmm.
her, she's very cautious, but also like there's an openness to her to for more,
Yeah. Hmm.
and to allow more in, I guess. And
Hmm.
Timothy's very closed. He's very, I don't want to give away lots, but like he's very damaged and whatever from what he's been through.
Yeah.
And they found this beautiful common ground, right? So like
Hmm.
take the gift away from Nicky completely. Like these characters have so much in common, and you just sort of like follow. Well, I was gonna say these two couples, but they're not always couples. Like along, and like so,
Hmm.
what was the? I don't know, not goal or inspiration, but like, how did you land on these characters, and what kind of impact did they have on Nicky, without giving away the end?
Well, that's like the $1 million question. How did you
Yeah,
find these characters? I found Minna first, and I think it was just that I wanted, so when I started experimenting with having her as a character, I still hadn't settled on where in Nicky's life the story takes place. And I was actually imagining him a little older. I was thinking he was maybe already married, like a whole sort of more established, I guess that was a spoiler too, but anyway,
it's okay.
so I was imagining him at a somewhat later point in his life. And I was sort of playing around with different scenarios. But I found that I really liked this idea of, here's a character who has a lot of clout. I mean, of course, a lot of inherent privilege, being just white and male,
Mhm.
and especially at this time period. And then having I mean, it's not even a friendship initially. It's a kind of a tense, like we're trying to just coexist and maybe learning to trust each other very gradually, situation with this young woman. And so that's how it started. And then I started thinking and sometimes characters just kind of tell you who they are and like what's going on with them. And so pretty early with
Yeah.
Minna, I thought, she's married, she has a husband. And as soon as I started thinking about that, it was like, okay, husband, he's a war vet. If he's a war vet, then he's had these kinds of experiences. And oh, wow. So now he and Nicky can connect over that, even though there's these
Yeah.
other huge, divides between them. So sometimes I think it's really just kind of luck. Like you start experimenting with a character, and the next thing you know, they just start telling you things, and you say, "Oh, okay, sure, let's try that."
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
yeah.
go
Mhm.
ahead. No, go ahead. You were
Oh
gonna say
no,
something
no,
else.
no. I think I'm good. Go ahead.
No, but I just think it's really brilliant because I hear you and I hear other people say. I think Ryan. I was talking to Ryan Hale, and he was like, because I asked him how he wrote a story, and he's like, I don't. I just go. And not
Okay.
everyone does that. But both
Yeah.
of you said these characters find their way in. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
and as a non-writer, I can't imagine trying to write a story and be like, and in walks, hey, Susie. Like, you know what I mean? Like, here's
Yeah.
what's she bringing? I can't fathom what that feels like. So that's so cool that they bring themselves in the story.
Yeah. Yeah, they do. And sometimes you try something and then you realize it's not working and you have to back up and, okay, let's try something different. But a lot of times you do. If you kind of trust it, it will show you a path forward. Yeah.
Do you have that letter to Nikki handy?
I do. Yes. So I'm actually on my phone because my computer was, I think, the problem we were having.
Oh.
So I have the letter open on my computer. So I do
So
have it here. Yes.
So yeah, I don't know how much, I don't know if we want to read the whole thing, but I think it's really sweet. And I had a question that sort of feeds into after this.
Okay.
Kris wrote a letter to Nicky, like almost as if he's her child, which he is. You invented him, you made him with yourself. And she posted it today on her Substack column, and it was really beautiful. Like I really reacted to it, and I was wondering if you can read part of it, because I had a card that kind of probes that a little. And when you read it, I was like, yep. So I want you to read a little bit of it, and then I want to ask you a question.
Sure. Did you want me to just start at the beginning and then stop at some point? Okay.
I guess, yeah.
Okay. Sure. I'll just,
First couple paragraphs. I don't remember.
Sure. I'll try the first couple paragraphs. Yeah.
Okay.
This is funny to do.
I know. It's because it's personal, right?
It is personal. Yeah. It is quite personal.
Yes. I did ask, for the record, I asked her if she would do this before. I did not throw this at her. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
go ahead.
I'll go for it. Okay.
Pretend like I'm not here.
Okay. Okay. Nicky dear, for all the times we've hung out together and all the words we've collected, this letter is tough to write. I'm not sure what to say as we come to the end of one story, my time as your secretary, should we call it, and the beginning of another story, your solo flight. I'm proud. That's not something I say too often about my work, but you know that this story and the whole process of sending it out into the world was always more about you than me. So I can turn it around and say, I'm proud of you. I don't know what it's like to be a parent, but sometimes I think I get the tiniest taste of it in moments like these. I'm very proud of what you became. I'm proud of this story that didn't exist before and could only exist exactly as we made it, even if it's not quite perfect, because what is? I'm proud and honored that other people will now get to meet you too. It scares me a little, maybe more than a little, but I'm also deeply glad. I'll stop there.
Okay. Perfect. It's like, So I've known you about a year. And it's funny because I wrote on my card, and this is before you said it was personal. The story feels Nicky discovers he has a gift that he can't share with anybody, right? They'll think he's scary, creepy, they'll abuse the gift, they'll manipulate him, and he has to keep that gift private and hidden. You as a child wanted to be a writer, and we're not allowed to be a writer, and had to be something else, and had to keep your love of writing hidden. And I think you're Nicky. I think you just gave birth to yourself.
Oh, jeez.
There we go. That's what I have. That's my card. It's you.
I could see that.
For the record, I think Rebus is Paul. So I think you wrote Paul into a story, and I think you wrote yourself into this one. Go ahead, react.
Sure. No. I mean, so Nicky is absolutely the most like me of any character that I've written. One of the things that I mentioned in this letter to him was that we actually share a name, which I did not think about before it happened. My middle name is Nicole, and I did not make that connection. Nicky's name just came into my head, and it was just there, and that's who he was. That was it. But we have somewhat similar looks, and he's also the only character I've written who has glasses, and he certainly tangles with a lot of the same mental stuff that I have, and all of that was intentional. To me, it's more like he's a brother than an alter self, although I can totally see that. But sort of one of the things that came into my head early on was he was like the twin brother I don't have, so that's
so he's you. So I was right. Okay.
Well, I think he's cooler than me, quite honestly.
He's like an alter ego, right? You didn't. I mean, you said twin brother. He was there. He was there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there are things about him that, as I did with Rebus, that I wish I was like that, but I'm not. So of course you get to play around with that too with characters. Yeah.
I think, and we're like sort of closing, sort of nearing the end, but I think this is like, you didn't ask for my advice, but I'm going to give it to you anyway, because I'm your friend.
Go for it.
But I think this story is very much a redemptive story, right? Like he finds things in himself and strength in himself, strength at the end, right? Bravery, courage that he didn't know he had. And he figures out a way to use his gift in a very selfless way.
Yes.
He spends a lot of years using it for selfish reasons, right?
Yes.
Money. No lingerie too much in this book, but yeah.
No.
Yeah. But he turns it all. And I feel like at the end, he's very proud of the man he is. And I hope that you too maybe see a little of that in yourself, that you are proud of this writer that you've become, and like your ability to put stories to paper that give us something to think about and escape, right? And you found yourself, Kris. You found yourself. You've done it.
It's still a work in progress, but yeah.
Aren't we all? I could lose 10 pounds, but I'm not like less of a human. You know what I mean? Like, right? I don't know. Like when I read it, is Paul come in? Is Paul there?
Yeah. We're still.
I arranged it.
Just looking at.
No, I arranged it.
Okay.
He's going to give you something.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
He's going to give you something.
I'm allowed to let him in.
Paul, what are you giving her?
Hi. There's a
Hi,
lag
Paul.
from where I am, so I don't know what's going on in real time and what's not going on in real time.
She's looking at me like, what are you doing in my room? I'm like, no, I asked him to do it.
No, and I'm like getting booted out like I'm the big bad cat. No, it's fine. Hi.
Did you bring her a drink?
I did.
Oh.
Look.
Oh.
Did you bring her a drink? Let me see your drink, Kris. Take your drink.
Okay.
No, I have to pour it. I have to pour it.
Oh, you have to pour it. This one's been sitting here the whole time. You didn't know it was here.
There you go, hon.
And Kris,
thank you. Thank you.
I'm adding to the stage this baby of some of the people who love you and care about you, all cheersing the launch of your book. We've got Debbie, Susan. I'd like to say John and his wife are now like somewhere very fancy with their baby. Right? We have Bess. This is Leanna, and one of your younger fans, David, who read 14 Stones. Alex, and this is Julie Brinkley, Bookstagrammer. So we are all cheersing you. Let me see you put your drink up and take a sip, Paul. To you, Kris, to Line Magic.
Oh. Thank you.
And Debbie says John and Angela are in Venice. So that's very, very exciting.
That is very exciting.
Indeed.
Oh.
Thank you, Paul, for being my partner in crime.
Oh, sure.
I keep saying we have to get real drinks, right? So real drink. Not just drinks on TV.
Yeah.
Thank you, Paul.
Sure, my pleasure.
Thank you.
He's a good partner in crime. Yeah. I'm sure folks, as you watch and as you listen, please leave her a comment and a tag cheersing her launch, because we were just so proud of you. And it's such an excellent book.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
It is. It's fantastic. You've seen my blurb, by the way. I added it to Amazon today. Did I add it to Goodreads? I can't remember. I will check. So for all of you who have read the book, and don't forget to ask the people who blurbed your book to add their reviews.
Yes.
To there. But I wanted to go over the review if I could, just my review, since clearly I hated it. Clearly I didn't like it at all. Line Magic. I have simply remarkable. There's not much more a reader can hope for than a uniquely original story. True, Kris, you're amazing at it. And Kris Faatz has done it again with Line Magic. This beautiful story is a fictional memoir of sorts by Nicky True, a man who can make magic with his drawings. Join Nicky as he reflects on a life of love, loss, and ultimately, and beautifully, finding purpose. Line Magic is a place where history meets fantasy, dreams become reality, and if you're open to it, you might just find a little magic for yourself. Brilliant.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Of course. It is. It's such a beautiful story. And, we have a couple more minutes. I was looking to see, like, has anyone done this before? And no, I'd like to report to you that, I mean, I didn't scour the Library of Congress, but like, there's no story at all of anyone changing reality with drawings. They invent reality,
I'm
right?
surprised.
No, Harold and the Purple Crayon. We just watched that the other day, and I'm like, oh, that's,
yeah.
I mean, but he's inventing, right? So
Yes.
I think we look at art to escape, and your book is very much like, they're not escaping and to your point, making a solution. He's not fixing the world.
Right.
He is affecting the world for a limited time. And I guess in our own special way, we all have the opportunity to affect the world for a limited time.
Yes.
He gets to do it in a very magical way. Maybe we can all just be nice to each other.
That'd be a good start.
Go out on a limb.
Yeah.
I know.
Well, and
very,
that is
I'm very original.
Yeah, no, that is really the point that I kind of wanted to leave the reader with, because that's of course the question that Nicky ultimately is going to ask, is where is your magic? And that sort of evolved, as I was working on thinking, how am I going to end this? This is just going on, like, where is the ending of this? But it started to feel like, yeah, if this is magic, and this is a very obvious type of magic, but there can be other types, that are more subtle, or you might not think of them that way. But that became a really important question as I was working on it.
Well, and ultimately, again, no spoilers, the way he uses his magic to help other people isn't really about the magic, right? It's just a lure. It's the kindness and the bravery and the courage to do what he did. And the magic was just the golden carrot,
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then what are the lasting effects of the magic that we can put out into the world? Right? What are the lasting effects? What is his legacy? Which is sort of how the book ends.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, your legacy is good with me, Kris, because these are beautiful stories, and thank you for sharing them.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Where can people find you? So all the places.
Yeah, so my website, KrisFaatz.com, my brand new writer website, which is awesome. Thank you, Sam Trathan. She did such a great job. I am also on Facebook, and I have a writer page on Facebook, which is Kris Faatz Writer. I'm on Instagram, and that's also at Kris Faatz. I'm sort of on TikTok very seldom. I'm on Blue Sky occasionally, but mostly Facebook and Instagram are the two big socials.
And what about Substack?
Oh, so gee, I've only been doing this for 8 months, and I forgot all about it. Yeah. Substack.
That's why I'm here. I'm here to help you remember.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a column that's called A Place to Stand. And it's kind of eclectic, but it's mostly like I share music and I share meditations, and it's sort of like taking a few minutes out of each day to kind of center and connect with yourself and get a little peace, given all of the stuff, in the world.
Turmoil.
So yes, that's turmoil. Yes, good word. Yeah, exactly.
And you also have a writers group, right? On Mondays?
Yes, I do. I have a Monday evening workshop that it's you don't have to be an experienced writer. It's kind of a meditative writing. We do prompts that are kind of sensory detail, think about experiences, single word prompts, take this word wherever you want to go with it. And we have time for sharing and then for quietly writing as a group. And those are really fun, and new members are welcome anytime.
Oh, I keep saying I'm going to come, but I live in fear of failure. I'm not a perfectionist.
There is no failure. There is no failure.
Perfectionist.
No,
all right.
No.
See everyone how lovely and supportive she is? How can you not like her?
Oh.
Read her books. Go buy them. And review them and post them. Post the reviews. All right. Thank you everyone for joining us. I'm Charissa with Charm City Readers, and you know where to find Kris now. Go get her books. Hold up Line Magic. I've got this one. 14 Stones, Line Magic.
Line Magic. Ta-da.
There are a couple more, but these are just the recent ones. There are a couple more.
These are, yes.
All
these
right.
are the main
Thanks,
ones.
everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.